Hi, everybody. Welcome to Tablas Creek's weekly live Instagram broadcast. I'm Jason Haas. So this is a big day for us. This is the day where our tasting room reopens. I have a couple pictures to show you of that. I have a guest I'm incredibly excited about, Regine Rousseau from Shelby Wine in Chicago. So I'll invite her in a couple of minutes. But first, as usual, I want to give you a little tour of what things look like out in the vineyard and in the winery, because there's lots of work that's going on out there too. So, show you a picture first of one of the areas in the middle of the vineyard. This is one of our quince trees with lots of fruit on it, and then some young vines in the background there. We're also getting our staff garden started. You can see we have some tomatoes and some tomatillos and some corn, something that the team here works on, and then we share out the produce as it happens. It's the first time that things are big enough to really look exciting. If you've heard me talk in recent weeks about how it's important for us to get into the head-trained vineyards and get the weeds cleaned up early in the year, this is a good picture of why. This is a Tannat block where you can see that the canes are already almost reaching each other. We really can't get a tractor in there anymore without doing damage to the vines. So we have to have had it cleaned up already. And I think this is a good illustration of why. Something else exciting to show you. A few weeks ago, we grafted a few extra rows that used to be Grenache Blanc to Muscardin. And those have started to grow, and I have a close-up of one of those pictures. So this is a Muscardin bud just sprouted. So this takes our Muscardin population from 5 rows to 12 rows. And given that Muscardin, there's only about 10 acres of it in the world, this is a measurable contribution to the world's population. So we will see the first production off of this, not this year, but next year. It's the last of the Chateauneuf-du-Pape grapes for us, and we couldn't be more excited. We are also in the rest of the vineyard. This is a more typical look. You can see that the cover crop has generally been brought under control. We've mowed it, starting to look gold. And then the grapes are starting to grow. So that was a Mourvedre block I showed you. This is what a Mourvedre cluster looks like right now. And I have the main other grapes. So that's Mourvedre. This is Grenache. You can see a little bigger, a little plumper. It's a little earlier than Mourvedre. And then Syrah. I zoom back a little bit. These are absolutely characteristic of Syrah clusters, kind of long and conical. So it's a beautiful time in the vineyard right now. The vines are very green. The hillsides are turning gold. The contrast is really pretty. The other thing which is fun about this Syrah block is that this was a block that used to be Roussanne. So we grafted it over about 4 years ago. So if you saw the new Muscardin graft, here's what the graft of the Syrah bud looks like. So you can see the kind of smooth area where the bark has come off. That was the Roussanne trunk. And we sawed that off. We grafted in a Syrah bud. I think it was 4 or 5 years ago. You can see how much it's already grown, so that's cool to see. The other thing that we're doing now is we're finishing the shoot thinning through the vineyard. This is a Counoise block. You can see the shoots on the ground. This is to regulate the growth, make sure that the yield isn't too high, and generally expose the fruit to light and air. A couple things to mention in the cellar. We bottled 13 wines last week. Several of you saw I posted a Bourbelanc bottle, but also Claret and Picardin, all of the whites from 2019, some reds like Counoise. So those will be released in coming days. And then in the cellar, we are working on blending the 2019 reds. So it's the cellar crew this morning, tasting barrel by barrel, marking them for which wine they're going to go in. This is an Esprit barrel, hence the E. And these are going to get put together in coming days. And then last, what I mentioned first, this is the first day of the reopening of our tasting at Tablas Creek. It's not actually the tasting room proper. We're doing all of our tastings on our patio, outdoors. with distancing, seated flights. We think it's a great experience, and we're confident that we can do it in a way that's both really fun and safe for everyone. Okay, so with that as a quick tour, it seems like everybody's joined us. I am incredibly excited to invite Regine Rousseau from Shall We Wine. So when she jumps on, we'll have a quick conversation. Hey, how are you?
Hey, how are you?
It's great to see your face.
You know, it's great to see your face, but let me tell you, I am so impressed. Now I need to figure out how to do an IG live and show photos. What in the world? Like, you know, I've never seen that before.
We stumbled upon it
Okay.
several weeks ago, and actually the first one that I did, I couldn't figure out how to turn the pictures off. So did about 10 minutes of conversation with me in a little square in the corner because I couldn't figure out how to get the pictures off. But
Well, that was awesome. I feel like I'm back at Tablas. That was great.
Awesome. Cool. So just to start the conversation, how did you get into wine? Talk about how your beginnings of your journey into the wine world.
Yeah, so I love to tell this story because we did not grow up with wine on our table, right? So maybe once in a while we had Manischewitz or some sort of a sweet sparkling wine because that's what my mom liked. So I grew up in Haiti. And when I came to the U.S., well, I was born in Chicago, but grew up in Haiti. When I moved back to Chicago, obviously I had to relearn, I had to learn English, right? So I sort of let all the French go. And so when I was a senior in college, I decided, man, I want to speak French fluently again. I want to reconnect with the language. And so I did a study abroad program. I was in a town called Besançon. And while there, one of the host families invited me to dinner. So long story short, the father happened to own a wine shop of all things. So as a special guest, he had a tasting set up for me. So imagine being 20 years old, right? Walking into a beautiful house, you're in France, you're living the life, and you walk into this house, and the dining room, there are like 10, 14 bottles of wine. I am not exaggerating. I was like, what in the world is happening? Because I didn't drink. But what he did was he went through each one. He talked about the history of each wine and what I should taste. And it was all in French. And I literally just fell in love with the entire process. And that was it. I was hooked at that moment. So that's how I got started.
So what part of France is Besançon in? I don't know the town.
Yeah, it's west of Paris, so close to Genève. It's actually closer to Switzerland.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Cool. Well, what luck to end up in a wine merchant's house in France during the study abroad. That's got to be a great introduction.
It was destiny. It was just destiny. Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. So we were introduced originally by the folks from our Illinois distributor, Heritage Wine Company.
Yep.
And so they can't say enough nice things about you.
Oh, thank you.
What was it like working in the distributor world?
You know what? It's so funny. What I loved the most was turning people on to wine, right? Whether it was a client or a customer, or whether it was like a friend, that was the best part. Like I enjoyed, like my job was just to turn people on to new cool wines. Like that, there's nothing better than that. It was so funny. I mean, I loved it. Sales is extremely challenging, as you can imagine. And I think it might be more difficult now because there's more competition. It was challenging, but every day I was just excited to be doing what I was doing. It's interesting though, this is when I realized that more than turning restaurants and retailers onto wine, what I enjoyed most was the customer part, right? The sitting down with my friends and teaching them about, oh, here's a here's a Tannat Blanc, or, here's a wine from Rhone, here's Paso. That was when I got the whole idea for Shall We Wine. And this was back in 97, 98. So that was
Right.
quite a while ago. I know it's shocking because I look like I'm 22, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because I think one of the frustrations that those of us who have spent a lot of time in the wholesale world deal with is that people in that world can be pretty jaded. I mean, they have great wines kind of thrust at them day after day, and for me, it's always really refreshing to get back with actual customers, actual wine lovers.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that that's the direction that you took, but it makes perfect sense.
I love that you say that, because that's one of the things that I try to fight, right? I want to keep that enthusiasm. So I try to fight this kind of like, oh, I've had this before, or I know this wines, or I have access to wines, because that is the beauty. When you can discover another producer, another grape, and just be so excited about it, right?
Yep. Cool. So tell people what Shall We Wine is and does.
So if you'd asked me this question before COVID-19, I would have answered differently. So
you can answer it twice. You can answer,
right,
you can answer before and after.
Because we have an hour, right? We're going to hang out for like 3 hours? No?
Okay. As you wish. I don't have anything to do.
So I'm going to answer it this way. So what we're doing today is we're building community. One of the things that I'm super, super excited about. So prior to COVID-19, everything that we did was client facing. So the folks at Heritage, for example, we did tastings, in-store demos for them. We also did corporate events, right? All of our activations, everything was about wine and spirit based. At post-COVID-19, what we're doing now is doing virtual events. And I'm super excited about this because we're creating experiences. So for example, I'd love to have you on the show, and I call it a show. We have about 50 attendees each Friday, and we introduce them to wine or spirit. We taste together, and we have an interview, and we talk to the winemaker, or we talk to someone from the distillery. But what I love about this is we always get new people, but we have this core group of people who come every week. And after we talk about the wine or the spirits, we have this really beautiful conversation in a safe space about everything that's happening in the world. There's no shaming. People ask questions, and it's just become this amazing community of people who are sharing experiences and resources. And that's what we all need right now, right? So
yeah, that sounds great.
It's been awesome. But, in terms of our services, demos, a lot of events, I write about wine, I blog about wine, we do wine travel. We had a trip planned to Spain prior to COVID-19. So hopefully in 2021, we'll get back to it. Yeah.
Yeah. And do you feel like, so where do you feel like things are going to settle? Do you feel like as things are starting to open up, I know I talked about in the intro here that our tasting room is reopening today. It seems like restaurants and wine bars and wine shops are starting to reopen to different degrees and in different ways around the country. To what extent do you think the things which have had to develop in the last 3 months are going to continue to be important and relevant as America opens back up?
So I think they are going to be relevant. I plan on continuing to do virtual events. Maybe not as often because, people will have more options, but I just think about the people I've been able to reach. Some of the people who come to my calls, I say, well, do you want to do this after, once we're reopened? And some of them are like, Regine, we weren't doing anything anyway. So you are our Friday night entertainment, right? I also think that smaller wineries have had an opportunity to really reach a wider market. So what you're doing is amazing. And if you continue to do it, think about people who are, you know, in parts of the world, other parts of the world, they'll learn about Tablas. But also think about everything that I do, and I know I'm getting excited, I talk with my hands, but it's all about accessibility to me, right? I told you the story that I never grew up with wine. Because of what I do now, I've opened the door for other people.
Yeah.
So not everyone can travel to California, right? Not everyone can come see you, but in 30 minutes or actually 5 minutes, you gave them that experience. So I do think it's relevant, and I hope we continue to do it because it's going to bring more people into the wine world and wine space, and which is what we're here to do.
Man, I could not agree more. That's awesome. That's one of the we've come to almost exactly the same conclusion here, which is that yeah, maybe we don't need to do things with quite the frequency that we've been doing them over the last 3 months, but if you think of traditional wine marketing, it basically, at least from a winery standpoint, it basically requires the customer to come to the winery in one way or another. So either that's literal, like they're coming into your tasting room, or they're coming to a wine dinner, or they're coming to a festival where you also are. And you're totally right that there's so many more customers, even current customers, let alone potential customers, who are not in a position where they can come and see you every week or month or year than there are who can. And the whole realization that we really weren't doing enough to reach customers and potential customers where they are, I think is going to be one of the most lasting things that comes out of this whole coronavirus pandemic shutdown restrictions.
Completely agree. And the fact that with technology we can do it so easily, it's been great.
Cool. So if you would, can you talk about this moment a little bit? I feel like the wine, I don't like the word industry. I feel like wine community is a better word, but I feel like the wine community is sort of belatedly finally coming to grips with the fact that it doesn't look all that much like America. It tends to be pretty monochromatic. I don't think it has done enough to reach out to communities of color, reach out to people who don't necessarily look like winery owners. And I'm just wondering what your thoughts have been as you've watched this kind of belated realization play out among a pretty broad swath of the wine community, at least that I follow.
Yeah, so right now you have this kind of like, I don't know what's going on, look in your face as you're asking me this question. That's how I've looked for the past couple of weeks. Like, what is going on? How do I put all of this together? And I'm still working through it. So I'm going to answer, we have to understand systematic racism, right? We have to understand what exclusion feels like and looks like, even though we may not be purposely excluding anyone, right?
Yeah.
So I want to give you an example. If someone said to you, I need a person to work in my tasting room, right? You would probably recommend someone that you know, right? Just off the top of your head, oh, I know Jenny, and Jenny might be a good fit for that.
Right.
The problem has been everybody's been recommending someone that they know, right? And a lot of people have not taken the time to get to know someone who doesn't look like them. And I think that that's been part of the problem. So the work that I think needs to be done is what you're doing now, and what a lot of different wineries are doing is realizing I only know 5 people, right? And they all look like me. And so how do I get to know someone who is in the industry who doesn't look like me? And that, to me, I know it sounds really simple, but that's where the work begins, you know, because now I'm getting calls saying, well, where have you been? Dude, I've been here. You know, I mean, seriously. And I'm not the only one. There are so many Black professionals in the wine industry, and we've been here. But since the work hasn't been done to recommend people outside of your circle, and I'm not saying you, but outside of the wine industry small community, now everyone's realizing, oh, wait a minute, there are these Black professionals who can do this work and who I should have reached out to. So I'm hopeful, to answer your question. There's a lot of conversation that needs to be had, and there's I know Julia Cooney is starting something called the Black Wine Professional. So she's going to have a network of people so that, here's who's qualified, who's done this type of work, who's available. And that's going to be a great resource for everybody in the industry. So I'm excited for the start. Yeah, I'm confused. I'm like trying to figure it out, but I'm super excited that there are people doing the work.
Yeah, and it feels like it's at least moving in the right direction, that there's conversations that are happening now that were not happening a month ago.
Yeah, absolutely.
It is just the beginning, but at least it's a beginning.
Yeah, yeah, it is a beginning. And I think that we're going to have to check in about 3 months, 6 months, 3 years to make sure that this is not just something that's happening because we're all still, right? We're at home, we're focused. And so we're taking the time now. What I'm concerned about is what happens when we're distracted again, right? Are we going to continue to put the same energy towards this?
Yeah, and I think my worry is partly along those lines, in that obviously as things get busier, people revert back to what they're used to doing, but also that this is not going to be a short-term fix. This is not something that people are going to be able to write a couple of blog posts about and share some pictures about and have it make a meaningful difference. It's something that needs to be addressed in a more systematic way with how we hire, who we reach out to, who is expected and included in the groups that we put together for various things. So yeah, I think again, it really is just the beginning. But
so I'm glad you said this, because I had an interesting conversation with someone from a PR agency yesterday, and she was asking me my opinion about the kind of change I'd like to see, and I gave her some ideas. But one of the things that I told her is this: I'm speaking for myself. I am personally qualified to tell you about my experiences, what I would like to see, ideas that I have for opportunities to expand the community, the wine community. But there are also experts who are experts at diversity and inclusion, experts at changing the landscape of companies. And some of those experts need to be brought in, right? Just because I'm African American and I'm in the wine business doesn't mean that I can answer all of those questions. Yep. You have to rely on those people who are doing the work.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Cool. So basically answered the next question that I had. So, and one of the things that I love that I can't remember which interview that you did that I saw or read this in, but one of the things that you said was that people assume that because you're African American, that your company must be designed to market wine to a Black audience. Whereas, I mean, I've seen pictures of the events that you do. It is a gloriously diverse audience. Yeah. And I think that's something which is too often lacking in the wine events that I see and that we're often invited to participate in, is that they do not look like America looks.
Yeah. That is one of the strangest conversations I've had. And to be honest with you, I had it with a friend who's a client, and he's been a client for 5 years. And when he said that, I said, well, wait a minute, we've been working together for 5 years. How did you think that the business was for, a Black audience? Now, and there's nothing wrong with that. There are people who create businesses for, Black audience, or to bring African Americans or Latino or whatever into a certain space. But there was nothing about the marketing that someone would guess that. So that's, yeah. And that happens often. Yeah.
I'm sure it does. Okay. On a slightly different tack. So you published a book of poems.
I did. And wait, look, bam.
Oh, awesome! I was hoping that you would have a copy. But you published it twice, right? You published it as a book of poems, and then you republished it with wine pairings.
Yes.
Talk about
yes.
this.
So I have to tell you, I have to give a shout out to the World Wine guys, so Jeff Jensen and Mike DeSimone, because they gave me the idea. I love them. They've been amazing supporters. I call them my mentors, and they're just amazing. But we were having a conversation about some of my ambitions in the wine industry. You know, I wanted to do TV and I wanted to do speaking engagements, and they were like, you have to have a book. You need a book. And they've written about 8 books now. Amazing guys. So I told them about my book, Searching for Cloves and Lilies, and original poems. And they said it so simply, like, well, have you ever considered pairing wines with poems? I was like, that's why y'all are geniuses. That's why you're so special. It took me about a year because I wanted to do it properly. I didn't want it to be a gimmick. I wanted to really compare the story of the poems to the story of the wines, right? And I love it. I'm so proud of the work. I did a tour with City Winery, and we, you know, I think it's fantastic. And I'm not just saying that because it's my book, but I'm happy with the work that I've done. Yeah.
So cool. So
Thank you.
again, so it's called Searching for Cloves and Lilies. So can you hold up the book again so people can see it?
The wine edition, available on Amazon. Buy my book, y'all. Buy my book.
Awesome. Okay, so we got a question sent in from B Squared. What is your favorite lesser known wine region or varietal?
Lesser known. Ooh, okay, I got it. So there are so many, but I'm going to say, so I love wines from Galicia. So Trejadora. I'm a big fan of the Trejadora grape. I'm a big fan of wines from that particular area. I got to spend some time there, and I just think the wines are, so in Ribeiro, I love the wines from that area.
Cool.
Have you had, I'm sure you've had many wines from that area.
I haven't had a lot. I've had a few.
Okay.
I spent a little bit of time there in between college and grad school. Spent a couple of months in Spain. And I did like 3 or 4 days in Galicia. It blew me away because everywhere else in Spain looks kind of like California in the summer. It's gold and it's pretty dry, and you go to Galicia and it's green and lush, and it feels like a very different sort of place.
Yeah, I loved it. And we were there in the winter and drink a lot of, fresh white wines, and I had no problems with that.
So talk about what the wine, we got a question just sent in right now asking to talk a little more about the flavors of the grape that you mentioned.
So what was interesting to me is we visited various producers, right? And so one of my favorites, of course, the name's going to come to me. Oh, it's called The Flower and the Bee. It's actually in the book. Okay, so look for that wine. What I particularly like about that wine is there is a creaminess to it, which surprised me, which was a little bit different from the other that I tasted. A lot of fresh lime, citrus flavors. This particular one has like melon notes, but not sweet melon, more like almost an unripe melon. So just really complex, a lot of like melon, citrus, but imagine everything not being quite ripe yet. So there's the fruit, but there's a dryness to it. Yeah.
Cool.
I just got excited.
That's probably something else that a lot of people might not realize. I think most people think of Spain as a place for red wines, and Galicia is mostly a place for whites.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
What have you been drinking to keep yourself going through quarantine?
Oh my goodness. If I could, should I move this over and show you what I've been drinking the last couple of days? Sure. I'm sheltering with a good friend of mine, and hold, please, hold. So, okay. So I'm saving these because I love them so much. I want to do videos, but okay. This is Clos Pegas. Their Chardonnay, which I'd never had before out of Napa. I thought it was amazing. I started the vacation with some Pommery sparkling wine. So I'm drinking through his entire inventory. And then we also had a bottle of Belglos Pinot Noir. So he is a big fan of California wines, obviously except for the champagne. So I've just been here doing market research through his inventory.
That's what it's called now?
What'd you say?
That's what it's called now?
Yes, market research.
Excellent. That's the great thing about being in the wine business. Anything you drink is market research.
Exactly. But personally, one of the things that I fell in love with recently was a Docil Vinho Verde from Portugal, which, it's probably one of the best Vinho Verdes I've ever had. So it's Dirk Nieport's wine, which I'm sure you know. I thought it was fantastic, $16, great for, like the entire summer. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, this is just starting to be the time of year when I'm like, Verde, right. Why don't I have any of that in my fridge right now?
Exactly.
Cool. So if people want to learn more about what you do or connect with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
So Instagram is great because we post all of our events on Instagram, but definitely go to our website, which is shallwewine.com. We're actually releasing a new website in about a month. So we're doing a lot of cool things and we're going to have a lot of cool services. But again, we're all about community. You can DM me, it's easier to get a hold of me. DMs. So if you have any wine questions, or my favorite is when people send me their favorite wines and I create a video. But check out our website, check us out on social media, all platform. And my personal is Regine T. Rousseau, if you want to get a hold of me and see the other side of me. This is the wine side. I have two sides.
Cool. Okay, one last question. Sort of what's next for you? What do you have coming up other than new website and continuing to do the cool stuff you're doing?
So I'll tell you, should I tell you? Should I release it now, or or am I going to make everyone wait? I think I'll make you guys wait. So we have a brand new line of service coming out. So I will tell you about it in about a month, but I'm not going to be doing anything different. I love this community. I love the wine business. I love my business, and I'm just going to fight for it. And COVID-19 definitely put a stop to so much, but it's also given me a chance to start new things. So I'm going to be here. That's what's new for me. I'm going to be here, and I'm going to continue to find new ways to connect with wine lovers.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, we're at about half an hour.
Okay.
Again, this was Regine Rousseau. For those of you who didn't hear my introduction, thank you so much, Regine, for joining me today.
Thank you.
And for regular Tablas Creek watchers, next week I'm going to have Jeremy Benson join me. He's the executive director of Free the Grapes, which is the organization which has essentially allowed most of the country to be able to order wine from wineries and get it sent to them over the last 15 years. We're going to talk about the 15-year anniversary of the big Supreme Court decision that liberalized shipping, the Granholm v. Heald decision, and check in on what else is going on in the vineyard and in the tasting room. So I will see, hopefully, most of you next week. Regine, been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody, for joining.